a lot of people feel so alone, and on many levels they don't feel good enough, and they don't feel like they have a support system, and they don't know how to work on themselves or heal themselves, so they just get stuck in these old habitual cycles that don't serve them, and they have no idea how to break it.
I've been exploring transformational medicine for over 22 years, including the entire psychedelic pantheon of all of the plant medicine ceremonies. And one of the most powerful journeys that I've ever been able to be a part of is the Awaken Breathwork offered by Lukis Mac and Hellé Weston. They come from New Zealand. Their childhood, their past was filled with a lot of trauma, a lot of difficulty, and they bring that into their work with deep compassion and reverence for all humans. Whatever we have experienced, it's like they've been there too. And they have the techniques to really help you alleviate and move and heal from whatever trauma that you're experiencing. They're also absolutely cosmic, epic, wise, and I'm honored to sit down with them and call them family. I can't wait to share this podcast with you. The truth is that we're all the master, we're all the healer, we're all the mystic.
Give it up one time for Aubrey Marcus!
Lukis and Hellé, so good to be sitting across from you, especially coming on the heels of one of the most incredible experiences we've ever had in Fit for Service. 100 people at a time, with 7 unbelievable, facilitators there supporting everyone. And it was as powerful. I had so many people reflecting who'd done plant medicine, done ayahuasca. They were saying, this was as powerful as any ayahuasca I've ever done. And it kicked in fast with our crew. I mean, it was so potent. So I just want to reflect to both of you, like, thank you for showing up and offering that. Thank you for offering that to the world. And give people who are listening who underestimate breath work, like, you may think you know breath work a little bit. You may have done a little pranayama and yoga. You may have done some awesome breath work. But there's, like with everything, there's just levels.
Yeah.
There's levels to everything. And I just feel really honored that we got to meet and weave so I can see breath work offered at the level and in the style that you guys are offering, which really deeply resonates with me and, so many of the people that I know.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, it was fun. It was awesome. It's one of our favorite things to do. My name's Lukis Mac.
And I'm Hellé Weston.
And we're co-founders of Awaken Breathwork for everyone listening. And we've been blessed enough to be traveling around the world for the last 5 years sharing breathwork. But like you said, it's more than breathwork. We're really here helping people to release suppressed emotions and trauma and work through their shit and tap into their own inner guidance. And one of the things we really love to remind people of is that they are their own healers. So when we enter into that space, it's a direct experience of transformation and healing, and it's game on. It's all about giving yourself permission to feel your emotions and tap into your own intuition and open up beyond the veil. And for those who give themselves permission, shit gets real, like you said, 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah. As one of my favorite sayings is, a healer can heal you, a master will teach you how to heal yourself, and a mystic reminds you that you're already healed. And it's always been like this beautiful guide that, like, awesome, you can heal someone, great, but then they're going to be dependent upon you. But if you can teach them to heal themselves, just like the biblical saying, teach a man to fish, rather than give them a fish. And that's what's so powerful about this breath work is we're not all able to go rush off and do plant medicine, nor is it even advisable. It's very much a trial by fire to go down that plant medicine route. And obviously I'm a huge advocate. It's been a big part of my life, and I think it has amazing healing potential. But breath work is something that's just available always, right there in front of us. There's all of these trillions of atoms of oxygen that each one, if you split, would create an atomic bomb of energy, and you can breathe them into your body, stack them up, and then they start moving around and pushing out anything that isn't that energy of life force, right? I mean, it's like, and it's fucking right here.
It's right here. Your breath is right here. And I think that's been a theme that's been recurring over and over again, showing up amongst people that are drawn to us. Initially, there's the skepticism that comes up. I know how to breathe. I mean, Lukis even had it when I first heard about breath work. and I felt like we needed to go and check it out. He was like, I already know how to breathe, Hellé. I'm good. I don't need it.
Been doing it for a long time.
Yeah. I know how to meditate. I know how to tune in. We don't need to go
Done yoga.
Check this out. But I'm so glad we did, because that first breathwork session that we experienced changed our lives. It was the catalyst for so much healing and growth, and really became our obsession with breathwork. So it was such a cool journey. And yeah, that's happened a few times in our relationships. Hellé and I have been together for over 14 years now. And Hellé will suggest things and I'll be resistant to them. And then she'll say it again and I might be still resistant. And then maybe third time and it's starting to like click. Okay, maybe this is something that is going to be meaningful for us. And
have you ever been right one time where you were like, Hellé, I just don't think that's going to work. And then you actually do it and it was like, see, that was a dud.
Oh, yeah.
I'd say usually I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like usually I'm wrong too. But every once in a while you'll be like,
yeah,
told you.
Sure, I get those.
That was some whack shit.
Yeah, I 100% get those moments. Yeah. Well, we lived in Ubud in Bali for 3 years, and we experienced many of those moments where things just weren't resonating with us. But also a lot of learning, you know.
And that's the thing. Like, have the courage and the curiosity to go try it out.
Yeah.
Like, just try it out. Just see what it is. What is this? Okay, numerology reading. Well, I'm not really a numerology guy, but fuck it.
Yeah.
Like, I'll check it out, see what's going on. Like, let your mind be open enough to just come in, experience something. You've got so little to lose, especially with something like breathwork. So little to lose and so much to gain. Potentially a lifelong path that can help you heal, move energy, uncover things about yourself. The risk reward of this, what's the risk? Maybe you lose a little time, maybe it's a little uncomfortable. The reward is a lifelong, life-changing process. Like, it's so in our favor to take a chance on some of these things.
Yeah.
It really is. I've seen so many people come into our sessions and expect very little, or even on the other side of the spectrum, hear a rave review about breathwork and be like, okay, I don't think this is possible for me, but I'm going to give it a go. And they try it, and you always get what you need. That's something that I believe deeply about this work, is your body is so intelligent and you will get exactly what you need. So even for anybody listening who has tried breathwork before, I would say if you didn't feel that it gave you what you expected, the experience or the judgments of that experience could be more to do with what you expected versus what you actually got out of it. And it's something that we can keep revisiting over and over again, and every experience is going to be different. There's more to discover. But you have your breath for a reason. And this ability to tap in and access these non-ordinary states of consciousness is there in our physiology for a reason. And the release that's possible is necessary in these times with everything going on.
Yeah, well, breath is one of our original medicines. And let's be clear what we're doing, because there's so many different types of breath work. There's literally hundreds of different types of breath work practices. So we're lying down and we're using connected breathing for a longer period of time, for at least 60 minutes. Sometimes our journeys go into 2 hours. And we're diving deep. You know, one of the first things that starts to happen is you start to feel a surge of life force and energy moving through your body. Your whole body starts vibrating, and you start to open up, and you can feel it, and it's intense. And then you start to access more of your limbic brain, which is the part of your brain that processes memory and emotions. So memories are coming up. You're understanding yourself. You're feeling your emotions. You might be crying or laughing and moving through it.
I mean, my crying ratio for breath work is like 93%. If I had to just estimate based on instinct. It's so, if I go through a breathwork session and I don't cry, I'm like, interesting. That's weird. You know, and it's not even that I go in sad, you know, and be like, I'm feeling pretty good today. I'm gonna do some breath work. And it's not just like, sometimes it's a few tears, sometimes it's like deep belly sobs, like sobs for the pain of my whole existence and the existence of every being in the world that's suffering. And it's like, fuck. Wow, that was a release.
Curious to know as well on that. Are you a crier in your life?
You know what's interesting? Some things that'll get me to reliably cry is when I see someone willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. So like if I watch Braveheart or 300, I'm a fucking mess. Like, or Interstellar even, you know, like that courage to sacrifice self or family for some greater good,
Yeah.
that's what always gets me, you know. But like I could probably watch, you know, some of those shows about the dog, the sweet dog that, you know, unfortunately passes away, and be like a little bit bored in that, you know. But like,
You're like, I can see how that was meant to happen.
yeah, exactly. It's like all dogs go to heaven. I don't know, you know. But some things, it's just every time. I mean, I've probably watched Braveheart, I don't know, 10, 12 times.
Yeah,
I'm
me too.
I'm 100% tears,
Yeah.
you know, in those moments.
Every time I get activated.
Yeah, for sure. So it's interesting, you know. I definitely, and certainly people's shares, obviously I'm in a lot of communities like Fit for Service. These shares will hit me. Facilitating, you know, one of the things in the facilitation. So as people are going through these journeys, you know, I've been facilitating for 3 years now, just had the pleasure to facilitate your breathwork, which is just stunning. But one of the things that I find really helpful is to create sympathetic resonance with the person who's going through something and allow myself to go into what they're experiencing to help them move it and to let them know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
So I'll go in and I'll feel someone's pain. That happened with Eric, who's right there. I went over to his mat, and I could feel him just sobbing deeply, and I knew the resonance of those sobs. That was the sobs for the collective suffering of humanity. And I just put my hand on his chest and I said, I know, brother, I know. Like, I know.
Yeah.
I know. And I'm with you. And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
You know,
Deep.
it's deep, you know, and then I feel it, and then he's feeling it, and then you get in that, but you rise from that with like this solidarity of, all right.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
100%.
just it's such a beautiful space to be in this. It's magical and human at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I work similar to you. Me and Hellé work very differently. The way I work is very hands-on, very physical, and I allow people's emotions to process through me. I can feel everything that they're feeling, and I'm not attached to it. I just feel it, process it, and let it go. We talked about that, and then just moving on. And yeah, it's so fucking powerful. 1 minute I can be shedding deep tears, and then I can be laughing hysterically.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
0 to 100, and
You
we're just
really
moving
do ride those
through it.
waves with them.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's honestly my favorite thing to do is just to see people unlocking and releasing and clearing anything that they've been holding on to on an unconscious level and freeing themselves from it. It's so fucking liberating. And we all go through shit in life, whether you've been through some intense trauma. I think just being born onto this planet, you know, we're all coming in with trauma. You know, a lot of the work that we do is healing ancestral trauma and ancestral trauma that's been handed down through the lineations, you know, of all our family. There's just so much there, and we get to walk through it and be courageous enough to like step in and do the healing. And it's limitless what you can access. And like you said, you can shed tears for humanity. You can work on your family. You're working on yourself. You're connecting to your ancestors. You're connecting to your guides. And it's all a direct experience. It's all felt. And shit's mind-blowing. The first session I ever did, I was like this. My hands were up like this.
T-Rex.
T-Rexing. Yeah, it's called tetany. I was crying. My father passed away when I was young. I could feel his spirit coming in, and it was just this direct experience of connection with my pops. And my pops was just laying down the truth bombs. He was just letting me know that he was here, even though that he wasn't here in the physical. He was with me. He was guiding me. He was my guardian. And it was so deep and it was so cool. And he was just like, look at all the shit you've been holding on to, son. Look at all my pain you've been holding on to. It's time to let this go. And, you know, together we're just moving through it. But it was so cool. So liberating. And that's one of the things I hear over and over and over and over at our events is people tapping in and connecting with loved ones that have passed over.
Yeah.
Even someone who's never had that experience before, having it for the first time, you know? So
I remember one of my first breathworks, I connected with my grandma who passed. And we've connected in other ways, and I connect with her less now. And actually there was a point in where I kind of realized that she was passing that connection to my mother, who's still living now. But it was like, okay, your mom's now in this spot. I'm here, but you know, like, and she actually, I had a rock that she held when she was passing, and I gave it to my little sister, and it was just kind of this beautiful transition. But I remember one of the first times I connected with her, Grandma Bonnie, who's tattooed on my arm, was in breathwork. You know, where she was right there, and other times too in ayahuasca. And it gives you, you know, this is crazy talk for some people, right?
Yeah.
And some people, oh, it's just a memory and a projection of the mind. But I would challenge everybody to think maybe those things aren't different. You know, maybe the sum total of our conscious minds and all the universe is one, you know, and like our thoughts and the dimensional realities that could be associated externally. We try to make this big separation, but there's really not. That when we think enough about a Bigfoot, that there's a Bigfoot that exists in a dimensional thought reality, you know, and dragons, are dragons real? Yeah, fuck yeah, they're real. They're just not, you know, we can't touch their scales right now, but they're real.
Yeah. And also connecting with a loved one that's passed over could be very subtle. Like I remember my first experiences, they could be easily brushed off. You know, it would be like in picture form. My father used to ride motorcycles, so I could see pictures coming in my mind's eye of his motorcycles and him on his motorcycles driving them, being free. And I could have easily just gone on to the next, you know, in the breathwork session while I'm having that experience. But I tuned into it more, and as I tuned into it more, I could feel Dad's presence there. And then you get the shivers up your spine, and you feel that direct connection. And then you're open to it. So it's all about being curious, I think, and opening up with that curiosity.
And so many of us have been raised to not trust ourselves and that innate intuition that's there, the psychic abilities that are there. Exactly.
Of the world being like, no, that's bullshit. It's just your imagination.
That's something that's so important to us, to reignite that childlike curiosity and ability to tap into these different realms and to at least give it a chance. You know, it's just like what we were saying with the breath. Give it a chance. Give yourself a chance to experience your own intuition, to connect with that loved one who's passed over. And even a lot of the people that come into space with us, they're used to, say, working with a psychic or having someone else do that heavy lifting for them. And what excites us so much is empowering them to do it for themselves. Like, you can be that psychic. You can have that relationship with that loved one and those guides or whatever it is that you're wanting to connect into that you believe is beyond you. It's right there. And it's about getting yourself into a state where you're open enough to receive it, to perceive it, to trust it. And then from there, you're building up an archive of evidence of, wow, here are all the times where I was guided, where I did connect, where I did have that experience that was so profound that I could feel it and I knew it was true. And it makes an imprint on you, you know?
Changes everything.
Exactly. When you feel it for yourself, you know it's true.
I actually think it's, and this is just my opinion, it's a little bit dangerous to work with psychics and external people, because I've seen so many times. First of all, I think there are some people who can tap into some things and be really helpful, you know, like, and I've experienced that, you know, but I've also seen the majority of experiences that I've heard from other people is people maybe with limited connections or maybe no connections at all, but just, you know, want to believe they have a connection, and they'll start telling people things, and it'll put frames on their reality that then become reinforced by the belief in that. It's also why I don't like astrology. You know, I don't like things that put frames unnecessarily from another source. You know, I like going in and finding my own source. You know, like I remember a story of a dear, you know, sister of mine, and she went to a psychic and she said, and she was single. And the psychic said, oh, well, you're going to be single for another 7 years. And she was like, oh, fuck. Well, here it goes.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly, right? It's like, and she's probably, the psychic's probably going to be right. Why? Not because she intuited it, because she said it and the person believed her. And sister believed her. And now like that's going to create the reality. Whereas going into something experientially, you arrive at things, and it doesn't mean you're always right. It doesn't mean like everything you see comes into manifest. It's a possibility, but at least it's yours and it's generated from you. And sometimes, every once in a while, there'll be something that transcends your thought, and it just becomes a knowing, like, okay. And that's something I can unanimously recommend, is breath work to find the answers, rather than going to find this psychic or this person or this astrology chart. Like, that may be helpful, it may be not. It's risky. But like breath is like, I can fully and wholeheartedly endorse that.
Well, it's all running through people's filters, isn't it? And when you start to explore all of the variabilities, whether it's timelines and the various timelines that we're able to access and build upon, in our experience. There's that aspect. Then there's also all of the symbolism that comes through in our intuition. And this is something that I see in the work that I do and with the breath work as well. So many times we misinterpret the message.
Yeah.
And it makes sense later. And so if we can receive it and take it with a grain of salt and be a bit flexible in the interpretation of it, I think we can gather more of that evidence and understand that it's there and it's real. And our interpretation of it is where we need to develop.
Yeah, the literalization of things is a big problem. Literalizing the Bible, literalizing our dreams.
Yes.
You know, someone appears to you in your dream and you're making love to them or getting angry at them. It doesn't mean it's that person. What does that person represent to you from a archetypal level?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what projection is that? You know, and I think we get so used to being like, is it real? Is it true? Well, yes, it is, but you have to look deeper to the subtle energies behind it and the representations and the symbolism behind it.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a little bit of skepticism and a little bit of like, I don't know, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You know, like that attitude of maybe is very, very healthy.
Yeah, I think so.
Process.
Being curious enough to just be open-minded enough to try something, like you said at the beginning of the conversation. You know, there's many things that I feel drawn to try, and there's other things that I feel completely not drawn to, and that could change as well. You know, I think what you said is really important, to be discerning around taking on board other people's opinions and beliefs. And because everything is, like you said, you know, there's multiple timelines and those timelines are forever changing. So, and we're co-creating our reality constantly, moment by moment, with our thoughts, with our energy and actions. We live in an intelligent universe that's always responding to every thought and every emotion and every action that we take. So we can't get too fixated on, you know, it's going to be this or it's going to be that. We're in this dance with life and co-creating as we go. And yeah, we just have to follow our intuition, I think, like you said, and trust it, trust ourselves. That's so important in these times. We've been so conditioned to give our power away. And I think now more than ever, we have to trust ourselves, come back home to our hearts and lead from our hearts, lead from example.
I think one of the more profound experiences that we all had as coaches and facilitators here at Fit for Service, of course, we got our sister Blue here, and we've been a part of, you know, different breathworks, and everything is beautiful in its own style. But the one thing that we really appreciated about you guys getting us ready to jump in with you is you were just saying, you know, we want your superpowers.
Hell yeah.
We want to unlock your unique gifts. Like, what can you offer? And I think this is the permission that we all really need right now of feeling what's possible, and then having somebody say, and just say, hey, like, whatever your superpowers are, like, fucking go for it.
Yeah, because we all have superpowers.
Yeah.
You know, we all do, and we love that. That's our favorite shit, activating our superpowers, and permission slip for each and every single one of you listening to activate your superpowers in whatever way feels right for you, you know, because then we get to really do what we came here to do, you know, and game on. Game on.
And it gets so exciting as you start to feel it, as you start to, you know, tug on the threads of like what this thing is. It's like, all right, more and more rope come. Then all of a sudden there's a huge basket of medicine that you get to see, like, wow, there it is. But it might just start with a little thread. You might feel a little energy in your hands. So many people who I'm talking to right now have that experience where all of a sudden, like, some fingers will get hot or their hands will get hot. And they're like, it's just a little clue of like something that's possible. And now we're relegated to a world where, oh yeah, it's all bullshit. It's not scientifically validated. Reiki is a bunch of bullshit. Oh yeah, all right. You know, and I've been through a lot of whack Reiki sessions where people, and I've been a part of it. I tell this story too. I told this on the podcast with Blue. I've been a part of these things where I'm like, I'm doing magical things, and I wasn't doing shit. Nothing.
You're like, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It was just
I hope.
I was like pantomiming something, and then all of a sudden after my apprenticeship with Porangi, I was like, oh, now this is what it feels like when I'm actually doing something.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's all good. It's all part of the process, you know, like pretend, experiment, feel things. And if the intuition was right, I was like, I think I can do something with my hands. And I think it's going to look like this. I'm going to spread it out. I'm going to swirl it up. I was doing nothing. Absolutely
I'm
nothing.
tapping into a future timeline where it will all make sense.
Like someday this will actually be doing something, just not today.
Were you just practicing?
Yeah, exactly. It's just going
Shout
through the
out
motions.
to everyone practicing.
Yeah.
It's like air sex, just thrusting your hips into the air, being like, someday
Yeah.
my goddess is going to be underneath me.
Yeah.
And it's going to be great.
Yeah, there's so many people I think that were watching this can that relate to perceiving things that are outside the known reality. Like you might be going to sleep, having your eyes closed, and you can just perceive an energy in the room and you're not sure what it is. And it might feel negative or it might feel positive. But so many of us have that constantly, but we just move on to the next. We just, we decide to tune it out. Or maybe we feel afraid to explore it, whatever the case might be. But we all have those gifts. We were born with them. We just lose them as an adult through our conditioning and programming. So it's really just permission to come back to them. And like you said, starting off slowly. It's subtle. It was subtle for me. And then it develops. It gets stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
Spiritual fitness. You got to start somewhere and develop.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the world is not only not accepting typically, but it's also there's forces that have been trying to suppress a lot of this knowledge. Like 100%. I remember one of the most profound experiences I had was with my girlfriend in high school, and she was in a deeply Christian family, and she had a very profound experience where she was home alone with her mother, and she was just frantic, like, "Mom, we have to leave, because the dad was gone." And it's even tough to tell this story because I could feel her, and she was just a little girl, 5-6-year-old girl, like, "Mom, we have to go. Mom, we have to go." Mom was like, No, sweetie, we're fine. Puts her to bed, and she could see spirits, see things happening. Someone broke into the house and violated her mother that night, right? And so she was accessing something, but in that framework, that wasn't something that could happen. And that's something that's like, no, that can happen. And all those gifts that she expressed were then like, no, that's not real. That's not in our dogma, and that's just the dogma. It's not the family's fault. It's not anybody's fault, but that's the forces that have been in play for a long time saying like, no, there's only one way and anything outside of this is wrong. And it's really been a shame because there's so many things that are possible for people, and people have that. But I had an experience with her. She unlocked something for me. The very first magical thing that I experienced was with her. I was going to break up with her, and we were sitting across from each other, and I was like, look, it's just, not working out. And she wasn't accepting it. Not in a mean way or anything. She was like, no. And she was just looking at me in the eyes. And I ran out of things to say. And so we were just staring. And it was the first eye gazing we had. And she wanted to get in so deep inside me to tell me that this was not right, that she was just piercing me with her eyes. And then all of a sudden the air got thick and white and heavy between us. And I was like, whoa. And I would look away, but I was so drawn back to it because I was so curious. I've never felt that. And then I looked back in. Okay, look back in. And then it got thicker and thicker. And then all of a sudden I could see her as an old woman, a crone, and I could see her as a baby, and I could see her as a skeleton, and I could see all of these things. And then I felt my spirit. I didn't have a word for spirit. It was before my psychedelic journeys began. I thought this was all nonsense myself. I felt something rise out of my body, and I fucking lost it. And I was like, oh my God, we got to stop. And I just hugged her. I was like, all right, never mind. Never mind. You win. We're not breaking up. You're right. I don't know. I clearly don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So let's.
You just bamboozled me.
Yeah, exactly. And, but then from there, I understood okay, eye gazing is a thing. And it's something that we've done with the communities ever since. But little things like that can start to shake your reality tunnel. Yeah. And when you feel it, when you experience it, then a new reality starts to set in that's far more magical and far more expansive than the narrow frame that we have.
100%. You've got an interesting story around that as a kid. I remember you telling me.
Yeah, very similar. It didn't go that far, but before I say that, I just wanted to touch on the fact that I think eye gazing is one of those activities that puts us into a trance-like state where we're able to open up. And one of the things that one of my earlier mentors used to share with me is, Hellé, we're all in trance states all the time. And there's just different trance states that serve different purposes. And so you need to explore what is the state that you're operating in and what other states are available to you and how might they serve you, and when do you get into states that are really not serving you, and can you wake yourself up within that? And I feel like eye gazing, breath work, medicine, they're all different ways that we can, put on a new filter or take one off. And try on reality in a whole new way, and then let that dictate and inspire us in how we want to show up next. And then to your point, that was trippy when you were sharing that. When I was really young, I don't know how old, but a similar type of thing, my family was going away and we were going on a family trip. And I remember I was really emotional and distressed and feeling a kind of panic about leaving. Didn't want to leave, did not feel good about it. And my mum was like, come on, we've got to go. Like, let's get on with it. And I remember writing in my little kid handwriting, can I swear?
Yeah, of course.
I wrote
Yes.
I wrote fuck off burglar on these pieces of paper with my little crayons. And I put them on every bed in our house. And then we went away and we came back from our family holiday and those little notes were there and the house had been broken into. And
for the skeptics out there, how many times did you write fuck off burglar? Just because somebody might say, well, maybe every time you left, you wrote fuck off burglar.
No, and that was the one time. Yep. The one time. And I know that really hit my mum as well, witnessing that happen. And while she wasn't hardcore into fostering that in me, I know she was paying attention and was open to allowing that to be there. And so I kept engaging in my spiritual or multidimensional explorations from there. And I feel like, following what you were saying, we get so excited about helping people to activate those superpowers because as children, it's there. It's right there. And to minimize it and say that it's just imagination, it's just play, it's just for fun, it's just what kids do is such a disservice to the little oracles that we are and that we have access to. We were just having dinner with a friend of ours the other day, and the way that she's raising her children is in full respect of their wisdom. Like if her daughter says, I don't want to do that, she's like, okay, I don't know why, I don't get it, but let's talk about it. Being open and
I think my mum fostered
respectful.
that in me. My mum's like this magical, enchanted little elemental being. She's really cool. When I was growing up, she had so many books on the bookshelves with metaphysical topics and, interdimensional beings and all types of things and energy and crystal healing. And she had different affirmations all around the house. So it was really cool that mum would foster that from an early age in me. And I was having a lot of visitation experiences when I was a young kid. I didn't have the words to describe them. A lot of them felt terrifying and overwhelming, and I didn't really know what was going on at the moment. I just knew that there was something happening to me, and it was really strange and bizarre. Later, I would find out through, journeying through hypnotherapy and medicine, I'd understand those experiences. But yeah, from a young age, all of that was happening. And I think for a lot of people it is, but we block it out. We block it out.
And it's hard. And some people say, well, that's just not me. I never had one of these things. You maybe just don't know or don't remember, or maybe that subtle thing, was just not nourished or by yourself or maybe by your parents. Maybe it wasn't blocked by anybody, but starting to get into the work, get into the process will ultimately reveal it. Because it's not like because you had all those books, you went, the easy route, through life. And so I think this is a great time for you, because I think another one of the beautiful aspects of the medicine that you bring is, both of you, is that you lived some hard, challenging childhoods and some lives that were difficult, that gave you this breadth of life experience where you're like, oh yeah, and I've seen some shit. I've seen some shit, and I know this other thing too, So if you wouldn't mind, just share a little bit about your life growing up, like part of what made you who you are now.
Well, yeah, growing up for me, I was blessed. I had such a supportive mum. Shout out, mum. Love you.
She will be watching. She's his number one fan.
Yeah. And then, but like, you know, everyone in life, my mum had her own traumas that she was dealing with. And I was a very sensitive, empathic kid that could perceive all of that. And I was an only child. I internalized all my struggles. I didn't speak about them. Dad was a free spirit. He rode motorcycles and grew marijuana, which was illegal in New Zealand. He just did his thing. Like most men, he was really strong, but he didn't know how to process his emotions. He suffered from depression and anxiety and used drugs and alcohol to cope with how he was truly feeling. And he was on a self-destructive path, so I was witness to that from a young age. There was a lot of violence and different things I was exposed to. And then he committed suicide when I was 10 years old. He shot himself in the stomach. And that was a pivotal point in my journey because although I could feel everything that was happening, I didn't know how to process it.
Yeah.
And I internalized it. And I could feel so deeply, but I didn't know what to do with it. You know, I spoke at the retreat here that I started to use emotional eating from an early age to self-soothe and numb out as a way to kind of cope with how I was feeling. I didn't really know, you know, how to access those emotions and process them. I would draw as well for hours and hours, just spend so much time by myself. I know mum was really worried about, you know, the path I was taking, even from an early age. She could see how self-destructive. I had a lot of self-hatred, a really low self-esteem and self-worth. And even though there was these positive affirmations all around the house, I was having my own experience of looking in the mirror and charging up everything negative. I was doing black magic on myself from an early age, not knowing that's what I was doing, you know. And yeah, that led down a really self-destructive path of self-harm. And a lot of my friends, you know, joined gangs and went to prison and committed suicide. And that path was always available to me. It was right there. And I was definitely on that path, you know. But I realized that I was exactly where my father was. And I had to make a decision, you know. And the decision was either take myself out or start to figure out a way that I can start to feel my emotions and heal myself. And I had no fucking idea how to do that or what that looked like. And I was terrified. But I remember a lot of synchronicities happened when I made that decision. I wanted to heal. You know, I put it out there to the universe. I prayed. My darkest days, you know, there was just so much darkness I felt. It was like a dark night of the soul continuously over and over and over. And yeah, I started working with traditional Māori healers in New Zealand from a young age that do a lot of body work, myofascial release, getting into the body where the emotions have been held, working on you. I was crying and screaming and letting it out. You know, there was a lot of abandonment, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of frustration and sadness and pain. And it was all coming out. And it was terrifying, but also extremely liberating. Every time I'd do those sessions, I'd feel more free, more like myself, more open, more connected to my heart and my spirit. And I just kept on that path. And, you know, that led down a lot of studying and, yeah, enjoying studying different modalities, first and foremost for myself, to understand, you know, all this healing that I was experiencing, how I could, you know, be of service to my friends and family because they needed it the most. And I really ultimately wanted to find a way to do it in a way that wasn't spiritual, in a way that I could show them how to heal themselves without these spiritual modalities that were having such a powerful impact on me because they weren't open to it. So I was really curious, how can I find a way to help the people around me that aren't open to these modalities? You know, and along that path, eventually I found breathwork, and that was the catalyst.
And that's, you know, one of the great advantages of you as a bridge between people where they're at and people, you know, where they're free. You know, freedom is the other end of the bridge. It's really our goal to really be free and enjoy this life to the fullest. But one of the great things about you as a bridge that's been so effective is, you know, take our friend Jason Ellis, right? Like Jason Ellis can look at you.
Love you, Jason.
Yeah, I love him. I love Jason too. But you guys have a lot of similar things about your appearance. You're covered head to toe in tattoos, which is sometimes, I suppose, people can do that just because they love the art of it. But as you've described, this was your armor.
Yeah,
and very much the same. So for you know, same thing for Jason. So you see the remnants of someone who's been, you know, deeply, deeply in need of protection and safety and an appearance of strength and this stay away from me, don't fuck with me kind of appearance. And then you come with that warm heart and that confidence. And but people instantly trust, like, oh wow, like whatever I've felt and experienced, this guy's felt it too. So I trust him. So like we'll go there, and it allows you, gives you permission, gives you access to, if you want to go back and work with the gang culture in New Zealand or any culture, you could go to wherever you want, Chicago or, South Central LA or, wherever you want to say, you could walk in and people would be like, all right, I'll listen to this dude.
Yeah.
And that's such a gift. So your whole life path has then now provided you the opportunity, that all those challenges and everything you went through, the opportunity to reach people in a different way.
It's a blessing. Yeah, I spoke to Dad today in spirit. Actually, Hellé brought him through, and he was just like, congratulations, son. And just like, he was just with me at this whole experience this weekend and just giving me a charge up. And it was cool. Everything that I've been through is 100%, like you said, it's my training to do the work that I'm meant to do. And we're in it. We're doing it now. And it's a fucking blessing. It's my favorite thing to do. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And that's what Dad said to me this morning. He was like, I wouldn't have it any other way, son.
That's beautiful. Yeah. That's beautiful. Hellé, tell us a little bit of your story.
Yeah, so Lukis and I grew up in the same city, Auckland in New Zealand. And I grew up in, I guess, what you'd consider the sex district. My parents were DJs. We lived in an apartment. And from a super young age, they were hardcore into their techno DJing. I had a little brother. And so while they were out in this highly creative, wildly unpredictable creation mode, I was like a little sponge, possum in the headlights, highly sensitive child who was witnessing and learning so much through observation and feeling. So I was kind of like my brother's little guardian, and I would look out for him and we would watch what was going on. Wednesday through till Sunday, there would be partying right through the night. Right beside my bedroom, there was a nightclub, literally a thin wall. It would be douche, douche, douche. And I remember just as a little child feeling so much. And there was so much stimulus all the time, and I was overwhelmed and I didn't know what to do with it. And so I became a master of reading energy and reading people's body language and emotions and needs and catering to the demands of the environment. And that led me to a dark place. I am grateful for it now. I mean, it's like all of us, right? It all makes sense and we wouldn't have it any other way. But by the time I was in my teens, I was severely depressed, highly, highly anxious. My nervous system was fried. I didn't feel like I could relate to anybody. I mean, I had friends around me and we had these superficial relationships. And at home, by that point, when I was a teen, I hadn't seen my dad for years. I cut off contact with him when I was about 9 or 10, wrote him a letter. I think it's a theme. I'm recognizing it right now. I am prophetic with my writing, and I think that's something that is continuing to develop. I wrote him a letter and I drew little punching fists on it. And I was like, I don't like all the fighting and I'm done and I don't want you in my life. And he honored that request. And so I didn't have any relationship with my dad, and my mum was really not in a good place. Mentally, physically, there was a lot going on for her that was super difficult and dysfunctional. And she has an immense amount of trauma, more than any client I've ever met. My mum has the most trauma. She was severely abandoned and adopted from birth like multiple times. Just awful, awful stuff that she's gone through in her life. And she, with all of the wounding, did the best that she could to raise me to be a kind, good person. But it's unavoidable, right? People's trauma, when it's unresolved, it leaks out into everything. And it is that filter, that trance state that they're seeing reality through. And I became a bit like her mother. And we joke about this now. years later, she's like, "You're my mother." And I'm like, yeah, I feel that. I've always felt fiercely protective of her. And I remember from a young age, we would walk out on a Sunday morning and go on the street, and right in front of our house, there would be people who had been up all night being beaten. Like this one morning, I distinctly remember, and we had this corridor down from our apartment, and it was a glass door. And I looked out, and right in front of our apartment, there was a man on the ground, and they're like Islander men, and just this guy being belted. And my mum raised me to be a fighter and someone who doesn't let injustice occur without intervening. And so instead of us being like, whoa, there's things going on and this is not okay, go upstairs, she was like, come on, we've got to go and do something. And so we got right out there in the midst of it. And this is how I was raised, to speak up and to be the small, sensitive little fighter for the greater good and for the underdog. And I've given her that same fierce level of love. I will fight for her to the death. And just recently we went back to New Zealand and had this really, really powerful experience. She came in, experienced an event with us for the first time. And wow. I was able to get right down there, eye to eye with my mum, like hand just stroking her head. And it really felt like I was mothering her, and this is some past life shit. We've done this before. And I just let her weep in my arms and let things go, let go, and know that she's so forgiven and that she's safe and she's okay. And these are the moments that remind me of how the spiritual experience, it leaks into it, it seeps into every aspect of our lives. And for me, that was one of the most profound, important days of my life so far, because I know I've done the work on myself to let go, and I'm okay. Like the trauma, the stuff that I've gone through, it was not ideal. It was difficult. It was unfortunate. I have had many, many years of daily crying, sobbing, feeling fucking hopeless, throwing fits of rage at Lukis, like not having anywhere to turn to with my pain, not feeling like anyone was there to hold space for me.
Sure.
But I think the wound that I had of being like, I am alone, I am so alone, I get to pour that level of love out into others, because I am like a laser beam that just scans for people who feel alone in this world.
It's such a deep pain, I think.
Fuck yeah.
I was really, deeply meditating on our fundamental human desires. And the first one that I came to was to be known. And that means to be seen. But beyond seen oftentimes, in the avatar way, I think they mean it exactly as I mean it. Like I see you as the highest level, but it's to really see, you have to know them. You have to step inside. It's what we were talking about earlier with the breath, like step inside their pain, like see through their eyes, like see, like to know them. And that's the intimacy that collapses the loneliness that we may not even know that we feel, but we don't want to be alone. We want to be known. And many times we don't know ourselves. We're looking at ourselves from a third person perspective of a frame of reference of, oh yeah, this is me. And we'll even write in our journals, like, you need to do this. We'll put it in the second person. Well, who is that thing looking down at the other thing? And what is the relationship that you have with you, this elusive, multiplicity of self that we're looking at. And sometimes we don't know, sometimes other people don't know, but what we crave is to know ourselves and to be known by others. That's the draw for community. That's why loneliness is the number one predictor of early mortality and all of these cases of depression. But the breath work allows that in a way that just talking doesn't. Like talking is the medium by which we try to fix everything. Talk about it. Okay, great. But you're going to be talking as just a portion of yourself. That's all of your past. It's really your past talking. It's not even your present. It's everything you've been through. It's your frame of references. It's the perspectives that have been shaped by a difficult world. And then you do something like medicine, or you do something like breath work, and then you get behind that. And then what, Richard Schultz, who runs internal family systems, he just calls that the self, like your real self, higher self, capital S self. That part of you comes through, and that part of you knows yourself and can be known. And when you reach that place, like you did with your mother, it's so much farther beyond words.
Yeah.
Because you're really getting into the deeper levels of capital S self, knowing capital S self in another form.
Yeah.
And that's where the real magic happens.
Yeah, that's the real healing. That's the somatic healing. That's what I love about Awaken Breathwork. It is a somatic healing. We're moving, like you said, out of the mind and into the body. And the body is the one that holds on to all those unexpressed emotions. Yes. Yeah, And the subconscious mind, it's a data bank of everything we've ever been through. And when we can tap into that and start to have a good look at how we've been operating and, all our limiting beliefs that might be holding us back, or, all that pain that's beneath the surface, then we get to really move it. Like you said, it's super powerful. Yeah, I find that really interesting, like around the limbic system, the part of the brain that processes memory and emotion, because it's non-linear. So it processes, the past, the present, and the future all simultaneously happening now. And a lot of us are carrying around the past, all the times that we've been hurt or haven't been able to express our emotions. We carry it. We carry that baggage with us, and then we overlay it onto the present moment and see the present moment through the lens of the past. And, through breath work, you get to wipe that lens clean. You get to redefine your relationship with your past and how you feel about what you've been through. And you get to move through victim consciousness and reclaim your power and have that direct experience. And then you get to see the future that you want to create. And then you get to condition your body to the future you want to create. And then that's when you start to really step into co-creating it, because you see it, you believe it, and you know the action steps that you need to take. So you go out in the world and you get it done. And that's where the magic is, because I feel a lot of people feel so alone, and on many levels they don't feel good enough, and they don't feel like they have a support system, and they don't know how to work on themselves or heal themselves. So they just get stuck in these old habitual cycles that don't serve them, and they have no idea how to break it.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. There's a very interesting experience that happened on the second breath work, and I've been on this property here in Sedona for 8 years. I've never seen a snake, not once. And I've been out here and I've been on the land. I've hiked up all the land and all the different ways in summer, which is snake season. And now we're in fall. It's cool at night and snakes are less active when it's cool. And right when we were doing this breath work, there was a rattlesnake right before we started that came across. And one of the Fit for Service members was like, came up to me, was like, hey, there's a snake over here. And I was thinking like, probably just one of those docile snakes. Nuh-uh. Like full on, like 7 rattles deep rattlesnake. And it was this interesting thing. And it really was very interesting when you sent me a message the next morning, because you sent me a picture of a card. And the card was the first, I didn't draw oracle cards or anything before I first came to Sedona, and I went to Grace Grove. I met Anahata, I met Porangi, I met, a lot of like amazing allies in my life that day. Dr. Dan Engel, everybody was kind of gathered there at that point, and they had us pull a card. And the card I pulled, which was that was the first time I experienced breathwork too. Anahata led me through breathwork, was a card of a rattlesnake. And the rattlesnake said, the thing that it said underneath it was, the experiences you're currently going through are part of your initiation as a healer. And I remember it was so profound, because then at that point I was like, it's really exactly what we said. All of my life experiences to that point were leading me to a path. And it feels like it's so interesting how this has now come full circle, because I would have never thought of myself in the capacity as a healer ever until very recently, until my apprenticeship with Porong, until I started facilitating breath work, where I understood that, oh wow, I can say some interesting things philosophically, and I can put some cool ideas out in the world, but now understanding that like there's a possibility to heal. And there comes the rattlesnake, a decade later coming through.
Wild.
It was really,
and
really.
Your staff.
Yeah, and I have I got a beautiful staff from Chris Isner, and this was a very interesting experience
that was
too.
that cycle completed.
It really was.
You are ready.
Yeah, it was such an interesting thing. Like this, and you see that, and like the universe conspiring for these crazy coincidental things to happen. And so I had my staff. This story was kind of funny how it went. So I have my staff and I'm looking out at the snake and I carve a little line in the sand. Well, first of all, I got Blue immediately. I was like,
we need the wedge.
I was like, Blue, come here. You know, like we have some magic to do, you know, because certainly I don't want any violence on this snake, but obviously that was an option. If the snake got aggressive, you know, I was thinking like, all right, well, I have to use the staff to create the distance.
People.
I have to protect the people. But I was like, we're going to use magic as first option and violence as second option.
Yeah.
So I drew a line in the stand, and it was really my like Gandalf, you shall not pass. And I somewhat regretted not saying that at the time, you know, but I felt like that would have like, you know, trivialized the actual experience if I did a Gandalf reference. But I drew a line in the sand, and then I had Blue. Porangi taught me, he did a vision quest in a place where there was a lot of snakes in Brazil, and he had to give he put a tobacco circle around him to keep him safe, and the snakes wouldn't cross it, even though they were like all around him. They lived right in the place that he was. And so from that reference, I was like, all right, I'll draw the line, and then I'll have Blue come with the tobacco. And she comes with the tobacco, and as soon as she gets in front of the snake, like we were in this conversation, and it felt like me and the snake understood us, but I just wanted to be extra safe. So I was like, we're going to draw the tobacco line, take this, you know, pipe tobacco and move it through the line. As soon as it did that, the snake turns around and coils and starts rattling. And we're just looking at each other. And it was this very funny thing. I was like, the snake was basically looking at me like, oh, fuck you, man. Like, here I come for you as an oracle, you know, and we're in this beautiful conversation and you have to cast a real spell, asshole. And I'm like, hey, sorry, man. I'm just saying, like, this is like a hard boundary here.
Yeah.
And so we just had this very interesting thing. And eventually it actually started to come around the back. So I had to bring the staff like with me. And then eventually, you know, we like communicated enough and it started to go off the other way. But this is just one like small example. Sure, could be just radical coincidence. But if you open your mind to the magic and the conspiratorially beautiful nature of the divine working through everything, then you could see that. And another brother Spencer reflected that there's a prophecy that he'd heard about when the snake people and the human people can rewrite the history of snakes and humans, where actually instead of fear and judgment of other, that they can have a deep reverence and respect. The snake representing that kundalini energy, that innate power that we have, that thing that we're accessing in breathwork, all of that power, that's a part of the snake too. And also being aware that, all right, yes, that might be dangerous. That might be something to be afraid of, but can you love that too? Can you really like love that and hold that and not other that thing just because it's living its sacred purpose of having a rattle and having venom and being a part of this? Can you hold that in the same way that you would hold, you know, one of the rabbits that we see out here, you know, and not say like, oh, rabbit's good, snake is bad.
100%. You know? Well, it's interesting, because as that rattlesnake was there, then people were just getting ready, just preparing to open up and shine light on their own darkness and shed layers, you know, shed a skin. So it's like, you know, it was all happening and going down. I remember in that moment, Hellé and I just looking over and we were like, okay, something's happening. We're not sure what's happening, but let's activate the people. We're going in.
Turning it into a part of the experience. I'm like, notice all the ways you get distracted.
By a rattlesnake. People are like, it's a fucking rattlesnake. Of course I'm distracted. You guys handled it. You guys handled it beautifully. But just one of those interesting and magnificent things that happens when you open yourself to that magical space. And I mean, I'll tell you, for people who haven't experienced this type of breath work, I mean, it goes so deep that it's like, it's unbelievable what people will be processing and going through. I mean, you'll see things that looks like an exorcism. It looks like they're levitating off the ground and things are moving their body in strange way. And it's not a thing to be afraid of. It's a beautiful thing. This is like part of a healing process. It's not, you don't have to create all the stories about demons and possessions and all of this. You can if you want, but this is all our shit, you know, like, as within, so without, as without, so within. Like this is a part of our shit that sometimes it comes out a little gnarly, you know? Like sometimes you go on the toilet and it's nice and smooth. And sometimes you get one of those firm ones and you're like, oh God, that was a violation. Oh my goodness.
And it's all the human experience.
Yeah,
yes,
most
it
definitely.
is.
We have so much judgment around the human experience, and we're so conditioned around horror movies and different things to fear the unknown, to fear what we don't know, and understand. And yeah, a lot of really interesting things happen in these breathwork journeys. But like you said, there's nothing to fear.
I remember when we first started bringing photographers and videographers into the work, there was a couple of years where we were like, okay, this is too intense for the public to view. If you want to be a part of it, you're drawn into it, cool, you'll discover what's inside once you enter into the event itself. And then we made this decision that we were ready to start to share it. And so we began filming some of these experiences of people having these huge cathartic releases. And I know for myself, when I've witnessed Kundalini activations or cathartic release, or even what we could consider an entity clearing, when I didn't understand it, my natural reaction was fear. And I think this is really important for people to understand is we fear what we don't understand. And once you start to appreciate the intelligence of what's actually occurring, it's not scary at all. It's beautiful. There's grace moving through it, and it's important. It's necessary. And by judging it, we keep ourselves locked up. And this is the very thing that we're trying to do, is unlock people's physiology, allow people to unlock these repressed emotions. And it's a part of really why we love what you do as well, and the ways that you serve, the conversations that you've opened up over the years. I mean, we've tuned into countless conversations that you've shared on this podcast and deeply resonated, because spirituality is just not love and light. I mean, as you were describing that snake medicine, I'm seeing that snake and that Garden of Eden and how much collective judgment there is on the role of the shadow in this human experience. But look, this is the experience, and there's contrast in all of it. There's learning in all of it. And in that experience, actually, that we did right after that snake showed up, I had a moment where I had a very confronting interaction with an individual in the group. And it was the first time I'd ever kind of had this face-off with someone that I'm supporting. I'm like, whoa, usually people are like, thank you, I appreciate you. And this individual that I was supporting was like, get out of my space. And in that moment, as a facilitator, I'm human. I forgot feelings. And I was witnessing her in her process and simultaneously witnessing myself in my process around that. And I'm like, wow, okay. God, the universe, the divine, whatever we want to call it, gave us the triggers, the snakes, the discomfort for a reason.
Yeah.
To have a really interesting experience, and we're in it. What are we going to do with it?
Yeah, I got the "Take the Darkness Lightly" tattooed on my head right now.
Yeah.
Like, darkness for me has been one of my greatest medicines. It's been one of my greatest teachers. And there is so much rejection of darkness in the spiritual community. A lot of the spiritual community all about love and light, but a lot of that love and light is false light as well. It has to be integrated.
Darkness masquerading as light.
Exactly.
Because it's that spiritual materialism, I am better than thou.
Yeah.
Because of all of these things that I've done, and because I am love and light, and you're in the darkness or you're in the shadow, I'm better than you, which is the ultimate shadow.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's a trap. And I didn't realize how profound actually that saying is, because it's not only take the darkness lightly, like, yeah, it's all good, but it's like take the darkness lightly, like it is light.
Yeah.
And like that's it's a beautiful reminder. One of my, guides and teachers is Paul Selig, who's a channel. And in his most recent book, he has a line where he says, when you understand that God is everywhere and in everything, you also must understand that God is in the unknown. And when you recognize and realize God is the unknown, that is when you claim faith. It's still unknown, but and you have faith that God is there too, even on the other side of what you're able to know. And that's what faith is. It's like, I believe even though I don't know. And that's like a beautiful choice that we have. It's the antithesis of fear, which is there's something on the other side, and maybe it's awful and horrible and, something dark. And it can be. I mean, lots of challenging, brutal things happen in this life. I'm not trying to say that everything is good and it always works out, because it doesn't, except maybe in a perspective that's so far above our own single life experience that maybe it makes sense there. But the choice for faith is the most productive choice that we can have. Like, the effect of that is going to have us live our life in a better way. And it doesn't mean to not have discretion or prudence, the ability to see like ultimately I wasn't like, hello, rattlesnake brother,
come
into our circle and breathe with us. No, like, you have to stay over there, like, I get it. Thank you. But fucking stay over there. There's this interesting balance of how this all plays. But that choice for faith is going to just be the most beneficial choice you can have for your own psyche, for your own mindset. And it won't make you less prepared. It's just going to make you less anxious, less depressed, less hopeless, and give you like far more possibility.
Yeah. Well, we've been so disconnected from our relationship with God, source, the universe, right? It's like a lot of us, like we were saying, we feel so alone and separate from that. And I think that was one of the themes that we're bringing through, right? Our divine union with God. It's like, in all the ways we feel unworthy of that connection, or all the ways where we're so skeptical and don't believe that it's possible to have that connection, and we're just lost in the darkness, wandering, And for me, that's what it was. And it took a lot of suffering before I opened up. It took a lot of suffering before I was like, okay, there's got to be something greater. There's got to be something that can pull me out of this darkness, because I have fucking no idea how to do it. And, I need help, like, help me, and then through prayer, through curiosity, then life just starts to open up possibilities to start to slowly glimpse into, ways that you can be supported, ways that you can open up, ways that you can start to feel safe. Because I think at the end of the day, most people don't feel safe. They don't feel safe,
Fundamentally, that's it. Safety and freedom on that continuum. This is something I've really been feeling into, is that in order to be free and to feel free, you first have to feel safe. And there's an amazing, clinical study that was done where they had preschoolers or kindergartners, young kids, and they put them in a playground with no fence. And without having a fence, they didn't feel safe. They felt like, and of course that's natural, right? Like, there's things that could come in, animals, people, whatever. It's not your safe container. And in that situation, they would all huddle around the teacher, and they would barely explore all of the different slides and things that were available in the playground. But then they put the fence around the playground, and then the kids were free to like run around. And this is our life right now. This is our lockdown, pandemic, COVID culture that we're in right now, where it's just, how safe do you feel? And if you feel safe, all of these measures feel incredibly restrictive. But if you don't feel safe, well, then you want more measures to make you feel safe. And then when you feel safe, then you feel free. If everybody's wearing a mask, okay, now I feel comfortable going out because I feel safe. If everybody vaccinated, okay, I feel safe now I can go out. But it's just people trying to claim safety. And then those who already feel more safe are like, no, fuck this is a restriction of my freedom. So, and then on the other side, there's ways in which people are afraid of some, powerful cabal and totalitarian, dictatorship that's going to move in and take away everything. And I'm not saying that one fear is reasonable, the other fear is not reasonable. People have different fears, different levels of safety and different things. And you start to see that, and then you look out at the world and you can have compassion. Just be like, okay, I get it. Like, you don't feel safe yet.
100%.
That's
I
okay.
think there's so much divide at the moment. Like, the war on consciousness is the division between loved ones and families, my belief system against your belief system. And I see that so much at the moment. We were recently in Australia traveling around and running events. And in Australia and New Zealand, there is so much divide. Like, it is insane the amount of pressure that the government is putting on people to get vaccinated. And some people are doing that out of choice. They believe that it's the right option for them. And then so it is. And then some people are making that choice out of fear. And then some people are just purely resistant to it. And it is really dividing families, And it's sad to see. It's really, really sad to see, because that tactic has been used for a long time, divide and conquer. And if it wasn't COVID or a vaccine, it would be something else, And we all kind of see where we can fall into that place of judging, taking one side or the other,
Right.
and then being righteous. It may be right for us, so we believe it's the right choice, but doesn't mean it's right for another person. My mum recently just got vaccinated, and for her, that was the right choice. She feels empowered. She feels good in that choice.
And it made her feel more safe.
It made her feel more safe.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to, right? We're all ultimately afraid of dying. That's our greatest fear.
And that's an important place. When I was talking, I have these deep conversations with Eric, like, how do we support the world? We're dreaming into this idea of united polarity, which isn't about changing people's minds or opinions, ultimately, other than the opinion that somebody else is completely separate from us. It's like, how do we recognize the shared humanity that we have and understand that just because I feel safe doesn't mean that I should suppose that somebody else is going to feel safe. No, that's not. So, but at the same time, can we start to soften the jagged edges around death, which is the primordial fear, right? Like, this is the thing. How do we soften the edges? And one of the great ways to soften the edges is to feel yourself as an energy that transcends our life. 100%. Breathwork is one of the ways to do it. You feel an energy and an essence, and this thing that has existed forever and will exist forever. You can put whatever word you want on that thing, but you know it and you feel it, and then it's all of a sudden like, oh, well, nothing's going to destroy this thing. Yeah. Not a virus, not a bullet. Nothing is going to destroy this thing. This thing is eternal, and I'm a part of it. And then that starts to just soften the edges of this monster that we have on the other side of the ultimate unknown, which is what happens when you die. But you start to understand that there is, maybe you don't know exactly, but you start to understand that there's something else there. And it just starts to soften the edges of the monster and helps people feel more safe. But I think until we start really going after these fundamental fears, and just trying to help people for themselves, not tell them about it. I can't say like, hey, there's an aspect of you that's going to transcend life, and don't worry about it. Like, you're going to exist forever. And that doesn't mean anything.
That means nothing to this.
Nothing. The whole body's like, yeah, all right, whatever, fucking weirdo. Go do more drugs. Yeah. Like, that's the response. But then all of a sudden you give them a taste of it, like a real gnosis with a G. You give them that feeling, and then they're like, all right, well, I still would prefer not to die, and I'd definitely prefer not to suffer. And I'm with you. Yeah, I don't want to die, and I don't want to suffer either. Yeah. But there's the jagged, rough parts of that just start to soften a little bit, and then it starts to get a little easier to be more comfortable in your skin.
100%.
It really does. I found through breathwork that my level of knowing and surrender into what you're describing it's just become my whole state of being. It really is such a beautiful state of peace. And we work with people, all over the world, and hear things like, but how do you trust? And I know it up here, but I don't really fully believe it yet. And I'm just not sure. And I'm finding myself still in resistance and yada, yada, yada. And like, even with purpose, people say, I believe it's possible that I have a purpose, but I don't know what that purpose is. I don't know how to find that purpose. And through the breath, or through even a diligent meditation practice, different ways of communing with your self-medicine is another way, so many different ways, it does become a felt knowing. And it's so personal. I remember a conversation I had with a very dear friend years ago, and he said to me, you are your father's business. And this was a kind of, I guess, Christian mystic type of statement that he was making. And I don't personally identify God as a father, but I really got what he was saying in that moment, that it is between me and creation. It is between you and creation. It's between each individual and this one mind, however we interpret it. And if we're not connected to that and we're outsourcing that, no wonder we feel confused and skeptical. No wonder we're like, I'm a bit uneasy. Like, what is going on here? Because we're ignoring the very thing that would give us that great exhale of relief and knowing.
And there's always going to have to be versions of ourselves or aspects of ourselves or parts of ourselves that are going to have to die to get to where we want to go.
Yeah.
To be the person, that we came here to be and live on purpose, like we're going to have to go through ego deaths. And an ego death can feel at times like you are physically dying, and you have to confront that fear and go through it. But on the other side of an ego death is a rebirth. You get to rebirth into a new version of you, and we all have to go through that. It's a part of the journey. And it's uncomfortable and it's scary and it's terrifying, but it's extremely liberating, and it's a celebration of life,
Yeah. People are so afraid of these ego deaths because they feel like a real death. When you condense all of the ideas of who you are, which is all of the references of all of the perspectives and all the conditioning and everything that's happened in the past, the ego is this representation of everything that's brought forward from the past that says and is reinforced by the world of who you are. And if you're identified with that, these ego deaths are not trivial. And changing your mind, changing your perspective, changing the way you think about yourself, it requires some part of you or all part of that construct to die. And the ego will protect itself like any entity. It doesn't want to die. It's why there's so much resistance to breath work or resistance to these different things, because the ego is just trying to survive intact in the form that it knows itself, because it doesn't have the faith that as it gets melted down and all of the constructs get melted down in the fire of breath, let's say, that the phoenix, that new part of you, that new bird that has new wings and new feathers that can fly and soar through the sky, that thing is going to emerge from the ashes of your expired identity and allow you to be who you really are. And you'll have to do it again. That phoenix will be flying around and it'll pick up a bunch of muck and mud and dirt and projections and conditioning. And all of a sudden the wings won't work quite right. And
you're like, I'm plummeting.
Oh no, there we go.
Offload.
And then back down, melting down the constructs into the ashes and then reemerging. This is like, it's almost like the respiration of life and identity. It's like inhale, exhale. And as more comfortable you get with that, the more it's like, okay, well, here we go. Here's this part of me that's dying. And I know, and I have faith that in the unknown, this new thing will birth.
That's the great surrender.
I would love to actually open up a little bit more about that, because I feel that for some people listening who maybe are going through an ego death of sorts and aren't sure if that's what it is, it might be helpful to just humanize it a little bit more and share about an experience that I had. So I'll start with the end and then I'll trace it back to how it went. Last year in February, I broke up with Lukis, and I've never spoken publicly about this. This was, we've been ride or dies.
14 years.
14 years, fully committed. We didn't ever break up, in that time. There was never any like, we break up, we get back together. No, we were rock solid for that entire time. And what led up to that point where I broke up with him in a very real, intense way was about 2 years of receiving messages during my meditations and breath work, and receiving just countless signs that I needed to leave the relationship. And the first time it happened, I remember I did a session with this healer. She is someone who I deeply trust. So when we talk about psychics and all of that, right? When someone gives you a message that is a shock to your system, it's wise to take it with a grain of salt. But with her, I knew that her intentions were very pure, and it was super left field for her to even say that, and she knew it. So she said, "You're afraid of leaving Lukis." And I was laying on the table when she said it, and my whole body just started convulsing, and I started crying, sobbing. It was such a visceral, somatic reaction for me. And I felt like I was witnessing it with confusion, because I was like, absolutely not. For one, I don't want to leave him. I'm in this. We're living our best lives. And so therefore I'm not afraid, because there is nothing to be afraid of, because that's not happening. And that was where it really began to open up a descent for me. That was when the phoenix started to plummet down, down, down. And it was 2 years of getting the message again and again and fighting it and denying it. And there were times when it would come through for me in a meditation. You know, I would see a being in front of me saying, like with a big gate, like a gate in the cosmos, saying, are you ready to walk through? You can come, but you have to come alone. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not leaving my best friend. I'm not leaving my beautiful life. I'm not leaving this contract. Absolutely not. And the suffering just became... I remember that
was so painful for you.
It was the worst thing I've ever experienced.
And it came with a lot of actual psychedelic experiences for you too. You were, because you were in so much resistance and so much fear, you were also just having these spontaneous... I remember you saying you felt like you were falling into the abyss, and
I would go into
no
just out of the blue, like during the day. There were multiple times when it happened, and I'd come up to you and I'd be shaking, and I'd just say, the only way I can describe it is I feel like I'm falling down a tunnel and I have nothing to grab onto.
Wow.
And I told him what was coming through, which was difficult. You know, okay, I'm feeling like I'm being told that we need to break up. Like, what are you meant to do with that? That's bound to bring up all kinds of pain and confusion. And you were just steady and there and like, okay, whatever you need, I'm here. I've got you, and I just want to see you happy and evolved and in alignment. And then it reached a peak point where I surrendered after all of the fighting. And I realized it came a bit after that. Well, I'll say that actually briefly. So I did mushrooms. I thought I had never done them before. And I got given this chocolate by a friend of mine. And he was like, I heard that, you know, you said you wanted to do a microdose. So here you go. I got you this. And I'm like, okay, cool. You gave me this. This must be a microdose. So I go down to the beach, Venice Beach, of all places, the Burning Man of LA. And
it wishes.
Yeah, right. The chaotic, crazy, you know, wild. Anyway, I don't tell anyone. And I go down there and I'm sitting and I eat this chocolate and I've got my headphones on, and all of a sudden I'm like, this song has been playing for an eternity. And I open my eyes and everything's like, whoa, 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 whoa. So fast forward, I find my way back to the house.
At that point, you realized you hadn't taken a microdose.
Yeah, I was in. I was so in. And I got back to the house, and Lukis and we met at the door, and he was like, okay, I'll take you upstairs and look after you. And I remember I stood there just in my overwhelm, and he was flurrying around, doing, you know, Palo Santo, getting the blanket out, all the things that you do. And
loving and magical things to support.
Yep. And I look at him and I was like, why are you being so intense? And he just looked at me and he was like, I'm just trying to make it nice for you. And it was like, boom. And I saw in that moment, that's a husband. That is family. That is someone who is just so devoted to my well-being in the most selfless way. And we went through a very deep, cathartic healing.
I remember you saying, I'm afraid of you.
Yeah, I'm afraid of you. I'm afraid of you. And we sat face to face and like looking at each other, and you said, you're still in the old relationship. I'm in the new one, and you have to meet me here. It was a very time-bending, tripped out moment. And a few weeks later, I think, I finally had this recognition that I would not be in my integrity to stay, even though it was everything that my mind wanted. And I needed to leap into that unknown, that scary, uncertain place, and see what was there for me. And so I sat with Lukis and I said, this is it. I think I'm terrified, but this is what I have to do. We need to break up. And we did a full, uncoupling ceremony.
It was actually beautiful. I was on a water fast when Hellé told me this. So I felt like I was more tapped in. I was more grounded. I was more connected in that space. And I just knew if this is what's meant to happen, then it's what's meant to happen. And, we love each other so much that we can't control each other. We have to let each other be free.
Yeah.
And I let you be free, fly, do your thing. And it was extremely painful, but extremely beautiful. And
did you guys, when you were doing this process, did you know that you would ultimately come back together, or did you do it for real?
It felt like
fully believed.
It felt like it was.
I think it's kind of necessary
to
do it for real.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that, the idea that you would come back together, which probably both of you have enough intuition to know, that almost shuts off on purpose.
Yeah.
Because you have to do it for real for it to be done in the right way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was off.
I've never even told Hellé this, but during that time I was sitting in meditation a lot, and I was calling in her next partner, someone that I could trust, someone that I could perceive, someone that I could see, and I knew who they were in the physical. And I was just asking for that alignment to happen so she should be looked after.
Wow.
And it was really, really deep for me. And I just surrendered to the whole process. And it was a journey.
And this is what you would call a death portal, the relationship itself, which our egos, our identity constructs are so woven in that the relationship itself, which almost becomes a third entity between you, that had to release so that those parts of you could release. And in some cases that has to be for real.
Yeah.
And then, but obviously the purpose of which you didn't know at the time was ultimately to lead you into, the new relationship.
Yeah. It happened
which
quick.
I can reflect, I'm around people all the time in relationships, and your relationship as I perceive it, and I've only perceived you post February or whatever, because I've only met you guys recently. This is actually the first time I've seen you both together is this week. I've seen you separately earlier than this, but just such a beautiful expression of relationship, but it had to die.
Yeah.
One had to die for the new to be born.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel that what had to die was a story that I needed him to be okay.
Yeah.
That I needed anything to be okay. And we got that, and it was rapid. It's wild because in the lead up to it, there's such an exertion of energy. And this is why I wanted to open up and share it, because when you don't know why this ego death is happening, it can feel like your life is being ripped apart, like totally ripped to shreds. And there can be so much energy put into fighting it. But once you surrender, things tend to fall into their right place quite quickly. It's the lead up there that takes the most time and energy.
Yeah.
And for us, it was actually only about 10 days. And it's taught me also so much about relationships, because I think in personal growth, some people, and even in life in general, not just personal growth, but we can have expectations and stories around what a healthy relationship is going to look like, and how maybe it's meant to be together for life and you're meant to work through these things. And if someone flakes out or gives up or walks away, then were they really at a stage of growth that they said they were, or whatever assumption we might make. And it taught me from such a direct experience that sometimes the most conscious thing to do is to walk away and to end something, to end a cycle so that something more aligned can be birthed. And you only have to look outside to see the seasons that come and go, and everything is forever changing. And relationships, businesses, whatever the thing is, they have their season in the way that they are, and then life wants to express something new. And I'm grateful that we're able to express something new together.
Yeah, me too.
You have to be mindful of the difference between walking away consciously and running away.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I've done, the latter, running away. in so many different relationships. Things get a little squirrely off, like, fuck it, I'm out. Like, you don't, this isn't working, like, I'm gone. And that energy of running away because I'm running away from something instead of consciously walking, I would always get sucked right back in, you know, and it's a deep regret, even though everything was perfect and worked out with my former partnership, was like, man, I did that a lot. Like, I was like, no, fuck it, I'm out. You know, it was very difficult. We were in a polyamorous relationship trying to figure that whole thing out without a lot of guidance and support in that, because there's not a lot of people we knew like us who were going through it. So, and it was beautiful, but I would run away and then be like, and then ultimately come back, because I was running away from something instead of like moving consciously towards that new thing. Yeah. And in my relationship with Vailana, I recognized that, like, this is a different paradigm. And yeah, I could suppose that hypothetically there could be an experience where we would need to walk away for a similar type of thing. But I knew that I would never run away. Like, no matter what, I would never run away. And in our death portals, we had one recently in the ayahuasca journey that we had with El Dragon. And where lots of things were coming up. And there was a lot of, you know, mistrust that was there from old timelines of old relationships that she had. And every part of my old self would have been like, you don't fucking trust me already? Like, after all this, like, I'm fucking out. You don't trust me, I'm out. You know, and I would have gotten all flustered and I would have run away. Well, of course I would have run back and there would have just been all this trauma. But I just stood in it and was like, no, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And, you know, knowing that if she needed to go, like, that's okay. I'm not going to hold on to her, you know, but I'm here. And I just would have said, no matter how painful it was, like, I'm here. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for all of it. However long this takes, if this takes years, like, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And that was also the thing in our relationship that was so necessary. It was for her to know, like, no, I will never run away. You know, if we walk in different paths, the only way that that'll ever go is still holding hands, just on our own sovereign journey. So it's this interesting balance of, like, when it's time to listen to that because it's a walking and it's a walking towards another reality, or when it's time to just say, no, like, I'm here. Yeah. And both are necessary.
100%. And even relationships are so challenging because, you know, the pain body, the ego is coming up
for sure
all the time. And I remember one of my styles with my armoring was I just close off my heart and wall up.
Oh, I know that one too.
Yeah. I'm like
I can get real psychological.
I'm a master.
I'm just mind.
Yeah. I'm a master at walling up, and Hellé would always just bring me out of it. But she had such a gentle way to bring me out of that. It was a coping mechanism I used from a child, you know, to go inwards, process my emotions, become aloof, and just figure things out on my own. But Hellé would just reel me out of it. This was early on in our relationship. And then through doing that, it changed our communication. It changed everything. There was an important time where I wouldn't share my thoughts and feelings with Hellé.
I hadn't seen you cry for the first few years of our relationship.
Yeah. I was so locked up. And then that shifting to communicating everything, like over communicating, like sharing every fucking thing. Like, we don't even have the door closed when we go to the toilet, take a shit. We have the door open. It's like everything is being shared, you know? Yeah. And it's like, that process has been really healing for us because, we get to understand each other on such a deep level.
And it's safe.
Yeah. Shout out all the couples out there doing their thing.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
And, you know, one thing that I think on the topic of couples is, I think it's very important for everyone to have their own journey. But I also see very many, you know, in many cases when one partner says yes to something like breath work and their partner is not ready for that, isn't willing, that creates a lot of tension and a lot of dissonance. You know, if one person goes on a transformational journey and quest and the other isn't ready, and it's this delicate balance of, like, I honor you where you are and I can't force you into this. Yeah. But it creates more and more distance and lack of relatability. Like, and I feel for even the Fit for Service members who came here, and many of which weren't with their partners, and they got to go home and describe what happened in that breath work. Yeah. You know, and be like, but they know that their partner won't know and won't get it and wouldn't have felt it, and that becomes difficult. And so it's this interesting balance of, yes, honor them where they are, but also you kind of need someone who you can walk hand in hand with down these paths. It may be a different path, but it's this interesting thing that happens on the journey. You start to find like, who's going to go with you all the way into the deep, into the shadows, willing to do the hard, messy work together. And I think that is really important for the long lasting couples that I know, is that both are willing in their own way, whatever that way is, to go into the deep.
Yeah.
To go into the depth.
And sometimes that takes time. Sometimes you have to just unconditionally love on that person, and they will come around at their own time, and you can't force them and you cannot change them, and you just have to hold that space and take away all judgments of their journey. I remember for a long time I would force people I loved around me, or try to force them into personal growth, and hey, read this book, or hey, do this, and it was just rejected. And the more it was rejected, the more painful I felt I was being rejected, and the more separation it caused, because I could see where they're at and I could see where I was going, and it was just a dissonance. But unconditional love is the thing that transforms all things, so that time and that patience with someone that you really love about, that might be on a self-destructive path, that might be doing things that aren't in their highest alignment, and they might not be ready to change. Unconditional love and patience, and setting boundaries and speaking your truth, all of it, but it's a part of the journey. We all take our own steps towards this path at different times, and those times are all in, divine alignment. So we have to honor that.
Yeah. It's not anything that anybody can answer for you.
There's no
Should I just stay
cutter.
and unconditionally love and learn the lessons of how to unconditionally love, even though it's challenging? Yes, maybe that might be the most productive thing. Or should I go out on my own and find something else that's indifferent? I don't know. Yeah. Nobody knows. Yeah. And like, it's so difficult to know, because both paths have learning. And I think when you adopt that mindset of like, I can learn in any situation, from any situation, then the practical advice, what should I do, becomes very difficult. Because you see the learning that's available on both paths. Yeah. Radically unconditionally loving is a portal that goes as deep as you could possibly go.
True.
And the soul knows, the heart knows ultimately. So you have to be tuned into your heart, and you have to know on that soul level what's right for you.
Right. I feel that a really important part of that process for anyone who's going through it is to be very honest about whether the relationship is still allowing the person to be present with themselves and proactively on the path for themselves, or if there's an abandonment of self going on. Because as soon as there's an abandonment of self, an abandonment of one's own needs, that is harmful. And for example, if, for certain individuals, being in a relationship with someone who's like, I don't want you to go to that retreat, I don't want you to do that thing, that's very different to someone who's saying, I don't want to go, but you go, and I'm excited to hear all about it when you get back. And there's other ways that you grow together. And those fundamental values are really important. Wanting to grow together, that's important. If you're recognizing in a partner and you're honest with yourself, if you're willing to look at the scary stuff and you're like, this person is not wanting to grow in the way that I know my soul is wholeheartedly committed to and needs in order for this life to feel like it was lived fully, honestly, in alignment with myself. And so that's the hard conversation that needs to be had within.
Yeah. And it can be scary, if people don't have that deep sense of self-worth and self-confidence, your partner growing, your partner being free and really exploring their magical potential in all the ways can be like, like stay a little smaller, like fucking don't go supernova on me. Like I don't have the hands to hold that. Like these are made of soft little flesh. I need like the core of meteorites to hold you as your burning star. Like I can't, you know, and that's really what's going on. You know, it's like, but ultimately they'll project it in other ways, find other excuses, find a way like to denigrate the practice itself but really what they're saying is like, fuck, I'm afraid that if you get too big, you're going to leave me because I'm not able to meet you in your bigness.
Yeah. And also maybe they don't understand like what we were talking about earlier with witnessing someone in a strange process. We're like, that's weird. I don't like it. I want to go with what I understand, what feels inspiring and exciting and sparkly and attractive to me.
If someone was watching the breath work, like watching their partner go through it and not breathing at all, they'd be like, what the fuck? What
I don't want you to do that.
Guys doing? That is not cool, nor safe, nor advisable. Stop immediately.
What have you done to them? But I've seen this even with Lukis, you know, in his look, being such a tattooed guy. I can't even count the number of women who have contacted me and been like, babe, thank you for sharing the work that you do with your man, because my partner would never have given any of these hippie dudes a chance. But when they saw Lukis, they were like, all right.
Yeah, that's what I saw when I came to, you know, when we served on the weekend. There were so many men out there and they were all curious and they were all open. They might have been skeptical, but they were here and they were willing. And that's the same thing that I see at our events. When we first started, it was all women. We could be lucky to have like one man in the audience, you know, that would show up. And then over time, you know, more and more men are showing up to do the work. And now we like all the men that are coming to our events, they're all heavily tattooed men that are not really into any form of, you know, personal growth, but they're there, they're showing up and doing the work, and it's fucking cool.
We had a guy just at a last event that we did a couple of months back, and he was this big pro bodybuilder, and he called for the mic and shared at the end, and he was like, I've got my partner here and she's a hippie, and, you know, I've loved her in spite of being a hippie all of these years and let her do her thing. But no, that's not my shit. You know, I'm into fitness. I'm into my bodybuilding, all of that. And he was like, well, today I've realized I guess I am a hippie too.
Yeah. That permission, you know, and I think that's something that I try to bring forward too, is like, you know, the physicality, like lifting kettlebells and maces and training. And then of course, Kyle's a part of the program, and he's, you know, looks like fucking Zeus, you know, just coming through a ex-pro fighter. And we're like sitting there crying and talking about breath work and medicine and things like that. And people are like, well, all right, I guess
if they
so.
Can do it.
Yeah, and you know, like, all right, what do you want to talk about? Business? You want to talk about hoop? You want to talk some shit on the court? Like, we'll fucking go get it. Like, we'll see what happens. But right now, we're going to talk about like that soft stuff underneath the surface. And people are like, okay, well, I guess I can do that too. It's just permission. Like everybody's just looking for that permission. You know, permission to, and you know, Vailana offers that in so many ways as well. Like she can get out on the dance floor and fucking twerk in a way that is like a hypnotizing trance where you're like, fucking what just happened, you know, and like bring all of that energy, and you know, women will be like, fuck, I want that too. And then she's like,
they're like, this is allowed.
Yeah. Then she's like singing in her angelic presence and being like, oh wow, that you can do both.
I love that shit. That's my favorite shit. Like I love to ride motorcycles. I love fighting, like kickboxing and boxing, and I love watching UFC, and then I love playing crystal balls. I fucking love all of it. Like, you know?
Yeah, so totally. Good. That's our birthright. That's what we're here. It's not to be one thing. It's like, let's taste it all. Like this idea of the warrior poet was one of the first ideas I latched onto, which is these two opposite concepts of like, no, let's merge those together and like be all of it. Allow ourselves to express in the fullest way possible. Doesn't mean you have to, but you can, and you have permission. And it's just like handing out like those massive permission slips. So
it's huge.
It makes me so just honored to be aligned with people of the same mind, you know, and the same spirit.
Yeah.
So I'd like to close this here with an opportunity. So we haven't talked about the technique of how you teach breathing, because it's a little bit different, similar, but a little bit different. And so maybe go through, you know, a quick breath work, and then let's just channel whatever messages come through. We'll just go around in a circle. We'll do a little breath work. We'll teach people how to do it.
Yep.
And then channel whatever messages come through.
Love it.
So yeah, Awaken Breathwork, we use a connected breath. It's a full body breath. So we're breathing from our belly up through our diaphragm, up into our heart space, into our clavicle, full power, baby, all the way in, and then a nice soft exhale. That's what we're doing. We have a signature practice called Awaken Daily. It takes about 5 minutes to do. It's a small sequence, and then at the end of the sequence, you're tuning into your intuition by asking yourself the question, what does my inner guidance want me to know right now? And Hellé and I do that every single day. And if someone...
Sometimes multiple times a day.
Most definitely, yeah. And if
I
anyone...
did it this morning.
Let's go. And if anyone wants to try out that practice, if you've been looking for a breathwork practice, but you don't know where to begin, check out Awaken Daily. You can learn it for free on our website, awaken.com, awaken with an O. And yeah, get amongst it. And if you fuck with it, do it every day. It's a great way to let go of stress and tension. It's a great way to get all the health benefits of a breathwork practice, which is, there's many, you know. But for today, I think we just take 30 deep connected breaths.
And teach the style of breath. When you first came to teach me at the house, it's a softer breath almost through the back of through almost like the back of the throat.
Yeah.
And of course, we all know that the way that a human being should breathe through daily life is in through the nose, out through the nose. This
Yes.
nose breathing, Matthias de Stefano came and explained, like, this is the essence of spirituality coming from spirare, the Latin, which is to breathe, right? And so that type of breathing through the nose is the type of breathing that you do. But when you want to really build prana, build energy, and start to create a shift in the body, then activating that, breathing through the mouth is the most powerful way to actually build that in the quickest way possible. But the way you taught it, it's even faster than any way that I've known, because you're incorporating the body and allowing your structure to open more space all the way through your belly, and the softness of the breath is also something interesting. So if you want to just demonstrate that a few times, I know people will be listening, but maybe even they can hear it, what it sounds like. Because it's not like, it's none of that.
There's
no
pushing.
no theatrics or pushing to the breath.
Yeah.
It's effort on the inhale and then easy exhale. So exactly like you described, we don't do straw breathing. We're not like, we just allow the whole face to relax as much as possible and let your throat and your lungs do that work to draw in and let go. And so if you pull their breath in, every inhale is with effort, the exhale will actually just take care of itself. And we've been speaking, throughout this conversation, the breath is a reflection of the cyclic nature of life. And there's a time to put in effort. There's a time to pull, to draw, to use that force. And then there's a time to let go. And so we mirror that in this practice to fully surrender on the exhale, just like you have a tissue that's drifting, dropping, and it just flows out of the body.
Yeah. Breath work, baby, there's a component of work.
Yes.
So shall we demonstrate now?
Yep.
We'll close down our eyes, and Hellé and I will just take 10 breaths, and you can kind of see how we're breathing and hear how we're breathing. Hellé and I will be breathing differently. We have a different lung capacity, and every single person at home watching this, you have your own different lung capacity in the way that your body will respond to breathing with connected breathing. So we're taking away the pause between our inhale and exhale. In everyday life, we have a pause which is natural, but for this technique, we're getting into a flow state. So we can begin in 3, 2, 1. And as you do this practice, you'll feel maybe some lightheadedness, some tingling, some vibration in your body. So we recommend doing this practice seated.
Or lying.
Yeah.
No driving, fam.
Yeah. Keep it safe.
No
y'all.
sitting like Humpty Dumpty on top of a wall.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Keep it grounded and cozy.
Yeah, this is an activating breath work, so you will feel energy moving in your body. You're stimulating and energizing and activating and tapping into your life force. So it's powerful.
Yeah. And in the practice that we teach, the Awaken Daily, which you can go and access, we're doing rounds of that breathing. And then really the most important part is what we're building into. We access this non-ordinary state of consciousness super quickly through the breath work. And then you're ripe and ready to ask, what does my inner guidance want me to know right now?
Yeah.
And to feel in the most subtle ways how your inner intelligence is communicating with you in a way that if you were in your waking consciousness, busy, stimulated, focused on all of the outside things, you might miss it. And this practice every day is just such an awesome way to increase your intuition. And we get all kinds of ideas. I mean, we get messages from clients all the time and people who are in our events who are like, I did that practice. I got this amazing idea. It was so random. Never would have thought of it in my daily life. It was just left field, and went and took action on it. And now I've moved to this other place and I'm living in this epic house and, all kinds of things.
The universe or your higher self, it whispers in the stillness, and the stillness can come in the silence after moving through some of these layers of distraction and these things that come up. So I'd like to invite everybody here in the room to join us in. And the number that's coming to me, if you guys feel resonant with it, is 51 breaths.
Nice.
Love it.
Let's get it.
51 breaths. And again, if you're driving, push this pause on this podcast or just listen through it, make sure that you're safe when you're doing it.
Yeah.
But everybody here in the room and then us, and then say, we go through these breaths and then just offer any message that wants to come through. Trust our own intuition and see what transpires as we just share from our hearts.
Okay, I'll keep us on track by counting, because one of the things when you're starting off with this breathwork practice is you can lose count. You can just kind of drift off and forget to breathe. So everyone at home, let's just tap in together and try keep up. We'll be breathing, at a reasonable pace. So if you feel lightheaded or tingling or anything like that, just know that it's a part of the journey and you're safe. It's safe to breathe and it's safe to feel. If emotions come up, even through this little practice that we're about to do, embrace your emotions. Give yourself permission to feel your emotions. So we'll go for our 51 breaths in 3, 2, 1. Let's get it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and slowing down ever so slightly, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, slowing down even more, nice and deep, that's it. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, going for your last nice deep inhale and a nice big exhale. 51, letting everything go, and we're holding our breath empty for whatever amount of time feels good for you and your body. And whenever you're ready to breathe again, whenever it feels right for you, you can bring your breath back to how you breathe in everyday life, breathing in through your nose and out through your nose, if that feels good for you. What does my inner guidance want me to know right now?
Feel into your hands. In the hands, you feel the energy of what you've been holding on to, clinging so tightly. Time in our life is always like a rushing river. And as we try to cling to experiences, to things in this river, our hands get exhausted on the rocks, cut by the jagged pieces as the river of time flows away, attached to our youth, attached to what we once were, holding tightly to an idea of who we should be, to be loved, to be worthy of love. Know that if you let go into that river of life, guided by the source, leading to the ocean of the divine, you will experience everything without grasping, without clinging. The joy of every moment on that river, the sun kissing your face, a face that will weather in time, but will radiate the light within, and your hands can just start to let go of that which you've held for so long, knowing that you are loved, knowing that you are held, that you are forgiven, always. And there is only one destination for that river, and that is into the sea of love, capital L love. And no matter what, this is where we're all headed. So can you enjoy your time spent in that river? Can you savor it? Can you let your shoulders drop and your jaw unclench and find the travelers of the way? Share a laugh, share a smile, share an embrace. Taste and breathe and smell and live. May it be so.
Shout out to everyone in the struggle, feeling like they're never going to make it out. Trust yourself, trust your vision, take aligned and inspired action, and just know that whatever you want to create in this world, if it lights you up and inspires you, is your birthright. Don't listen to the doubters or the haters or people that don't see your vision. The reason they don't see your vision is because it's your vision. Trust your vision. Take action on it. You are guided, you are loved, you are supported, and the universe has your motherfucking back. Let's get it, y'all.
Gonna click to that. I entered this world as a tourist, a child with a plan who didn't need molding or shaping, only guiding. I've realized along the way that I've made myself uncomfortable trying to make others comfortable, giving them more space, more real estate in my mind than is serving me to adventure through this world in the free way that I always intended. As I clear out what I let in, I make space to remember. It's a plan so innate, I don't even understand it when I use my mind to analyze over something that came from so far beyond this place that to attempt to grasp it would only be a distraction from the great tour I entered into this place to experience. And so here and now, I give myself permission to enjoy the trip and to gently set myself and others up to tour with space, to share in experiences and connection without getting in the way of myself or others anymore. I choose to enjoy it, not to understand it. I choose to trust it and be present with it, knowing that I chose this, I'm here for this, and I am safe in this.
Wow. Lukis and Hellé, you're gifts to this planet. You're gifts to me and my family. Thank you.
Thank you for having us, brother. We love you.
Yeah.
I love you guys too.
Yeah.
And we love you. Have a beautiful day, everyone. We love you. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning into this video. Make sure you hit subscribe. Follow me at Aubrey Marcus. Check out the Aubrey Marcus podcast, available everywhere. And leave a comment. Let me know if this video resonated or what else you would like to hear from me in the future. Thank you so much.